family has its rules. Some rules are love. Some rules are traps. The Eloho compound had both, and only one woman had ever told the difference. Mama Eloho had a saying she delivered like gospel. A bride must know her husband's home before she can call it hers. She said it to her church women. She said it to her neighbors. She had it so polished from repetition, it no longer sounded like a rule. It sounded like wisdom. What it meant in practice was this. 6 months after any of her 3 sons married, his new wife was required to come spend 1 month inside the Eloho compound in Warri. 30 days. Under Mama Eloho's roof, under her eye, under her complete and total authority. People called it generous. A mother who wanted to know her daughters-in-law. A woman who cared about the homes her sons were building. The women who had done the 30 days knew what it actually was. Festus's wife, Priscilla, arrived soft and left shattered. She had a warm laugh when she came. By day 8, she was calling her husband every night, voice broken. Your mother shouted at me in front of the neighbors. Your mother said my cooking was an embarrassment. Your mother said I was lazy. Festus told her she was being dramatic, that his mother was the most generous woman alive, that she must have done something to provoke her. Priscilla went home carrying the weight of a woman who had been called a liar by the one person who was supposed to believe her. Godwin's wife, Tina, was tougher. She lasted all 30 days, said nothing, left with a smile that stopped at her cheekbones and a quiet decision never to return. When she told Godwin his mother was difficult, he said his mother was traditional. She did not argue. She just rearranged herself around the knowledge that this woman was untouchable and her husband would not see it. Both women left the compound walking in straight lines. Both women left something behind they never fully recovered. Mama Eloho had a method. She started with warmth, a week of it, soft and disarming. Then the corrections, gentle at first. Then the comparisons. Then the calls to her sons. Your wife did this, your wife said that. I don't know where you found this woman. And the sons, raised to believe she was the most reasonable woman on earth, would come back to their wives with cold voices. What did you do? And the wives would fracture. Between the mother who would not bend and the husband who would not look, there was nowhere left to stand. That was the system. 30 years, no failures. Then Chike married Esohe. Esohe Chike Obi was 33 years old and a secondary school vice principal, which meant she had spent 15 years managing 200 teenagers and a staff of 30 adults and had not lost a single confrontation she chose to engage in. She was not aggressive. She was precise. There is a difference, and Mama Eloho would learn it. Before Esohe packed her bag, she sat with Priscilla for 2 hours and listened. Then she drove to Tina's and listened again. When she was done listening, she had a clear picture of the terrain. She packed her bag, put on her favorite yellow dress, and drove to Mama's place alone. She arrived looking like herself. This was her first act of war, though nobody knew it yet. Mama Eloho stood at the gate and spread her arms. Esohe, my daughter, God brought you safely. She smiled the warm, wide smile she kept ready for arrivals. She looked at the yellow dress, the natural hair, the calm eyes, and something tightened in her chest that she could not name. Mama, Esohe said pleasantly, your compound is beautiful. She carried her own bag inside, set it down in the room she was given, and began to exist in the compound exactly as she was. corrections began by day 3. The soup was too peppery. The mop was in the wrong place. The waking hour was unacceptable. Each time, Esohe responded calmly, clearly, with a precision that gave Mama Eloho nothing to grip. She was not rude. She was not submissive. She was simply, stubbornly, entirely herself. Mama Eloho called Chike on the 5th evening. "Your wife has no respect." Chike called Esohe immediately after. "Baby, what is happening?" Esohe told him, item by item. When she finished, Chike was quiet. And then he said, "Just manage her. It's only 1 month." Esohe held the phone. She felt for the first time the hairline crack in something she had trusted. She said good night and hung up. She sat in the dark of the small room and understood with the clarity of a woman who did not lie to herself that she was not just fighting Mama Eloho. She was fighting Mama Eloho and a husband who had already chosen a side. The only question was, what was she going to do about it? The shouting came in week 2. Esohe had expected it. What she had not expected was how the compound would go quiet around it, as though the walls themselves had learned to hold their breath. Mama Eloho's shouting was a performance and a weapon at once. It was always triggered by something small. A mop leaned against the wrong wall, a chair pushed in at the wrong angle, a greeting that came 30 seconds too late. Because small things were easier to deny afterward. I only corrected her. She is the one who blew it up. It happened on a Tuesday over a mop. Esohe had mopped the kitchen floor and left the mop outside in the sun to dry. The correct thing to do, the only hygienic thing to do. Mama Eloho walked past, saw it, and her voice filled the compound like a weather event. "Is this how you are raised? In this compound, we do not leave things outside like a market woman. What will my neighbors think? What kind of wife cannot even manage a mop?" The gateman heard it. The neighbors heard it. 2 children playing in the yard went still. This was the point. Humiliation needs an audience to do its full work. Esohe waited for the last word to land. Then she said, at a perfectly normal volume, "The mop was wet, Mama. A wet mop stored in a closed room grows mold. I was drying it. It is dry now. I'll put it away." She picked up the mop and put it in the store. She did not slam the door. She did not say another word. Mama Eloho stood in the yard, thwarted and furious, in front of witnesses she had assembled for a humiliation that had somehow turned on her. That evening, she called Chike. "Your wife is making a fool of me in my own compound." Chike called Esohe. "Baby, please, I am begging you. Can you just keep the peace?" "Chike," Esohe said, "your mother shouted at me about a mop in front of the gateman and 2 children. I responded calmly and put the mop away. Which part of that is not keeping the peace?" Silence. "She is my mother," he said finally, quietly, as though this explained everything. "And I am your wife," Esohe said, also quietly, as though this should have been enough. She hung up before he could find the next wrong thing to say. The shouting continued through the 2nd week. It was always public, always over something small, always followed by a phone call to Chike that Esohe had stopped answering with hope. She met each attack with the same cool precision, naming it, addressing it, refusing to perform injury. What Mama Eloho could not understand was why it wasn't working. She had broken Priscilla in 8 days. Tina had gone silent by week 2.
Esohi was 17 days in and she was still standing in her yellow dress, sleeping at 7:30, talking back in measured, complete sentences and calling Chike with a calmness that was somehow worse than tears. Mama Eloho started watching, studying. She was a woman who had run this system for 30 years and she knew there was always a soft place, a wound, a fear, a grief the woman was carrying quietly. She had found Priscilla's thing. She had found Tina's thing. She had found all of them eventually. She just had to find Esohi's. It was Amara, her own house girl, a girl
of 20 who was not cruel but was 17 days into being intimidated, who let something slip one evening while clearing the dinner plates. She did not mean to tell Mama Eloho anything. She simply answered a question the older woman asked in her gentlest, most concerned voice about whether our new wife seemed settled, seemed happy, seemed like a complete woman in her home. Amara answered because the question sounded like care. What she said was small. That Esohe sometimes sat very quietly in the evenings. That she had mentioned once, to no one in particular, that she and Chike had been hoping for something. That there was a heaviness she carried privately, like a woman waiting for news that was taking too long to come. Mama Eloho thanked Amara and excused her. She sat alone in the kitchen for a long time, turning the information over in her hands like a key. She aimed at the one place Esohe had not armored. She did not know she was also loading a gun she could not put back down. Saturday dinner. Just the two of them. Chike's brother had taken his wife out and the compound was quiet. Esohe had cooked banga soup and starch, 2 hours of work, and Mama Eloho ate with the satisfaction of a woman who had decided exactly how the evening would end. She waited until they were deep into the meal. Then she set her spoon down with the studied calm of a woman laying a card she has been holding all week. Esohe, her voice was almost warm. You and Chike, it has been 6 months now. Esohe looked up. Yes, Mama. Priscilla was pregnant by her 4th month. Tina by her 5th. She paused. Let it breathe. Your own. Nothing. My son's house is still empty. She tilted her head, the very picture of maternal concern. Is something wrong with you? Or is it this your career woman lifestyle? The late nights, the phone, the stress that is blocking your blessing? Because a womb has to be a peaceful place. And you are not a peaceful woman, Esohe. There are wounds that do not bleed the way ordinary wounds bleed. They fill slowly with a pressure that has nowhere to go. Esohe had not told anyone about the 3 months of trying. Not Chike's family, not even her own mother, not fully. She had not spoken about the gynecologist appointment she attended alone because Chike had a meeting he could not reschedule. Or the results that were not conclusive but were not comforting either. She had not told anyone about the nights she fell asleep with her hand pressed flat against her own belly, as though she could will something into being through skin and sheer wanting. She had carried it alone, carefully, with the specific, exhausting discipline of a woman who refuses to let her private grief become a public spectacle. And now, this woman, sitting across a dinner table with banga soup on her spoon, had reached directly into it with both hands and squeezed. For the first time in 22 days, Esohe went quiet. Not the composed quiet she had used as a weapon. The other kind. The kind that comes when something real has been hit. Mama Eloho saw it, and something in her relaxed. There, finally. She had no idea what she had just started. Esohe stood from the table,
walked to her room, closed the door. She sat on the bed and picked up her phone and called her husband. And she was already crying when he answered. And she never cried, not in front of anyone, not since she was 19 years old and decided that her tears belonged to her and not to the people who caused them. Chike, her voice was wrecked. Your mother just told me at the dinner table that something is wrong
with me, that my womb is empty, that my career is blocking my blessing. She compared me to Priscilla and Tina, like we are livestock being graded. A silence on the line, long enough to matter. Then, Esohe, calm down. She waited, still giving him the chance. My mother would not say something like that. You must have taken it the wrong way. You know how you are when you are tired. She probably just asked a question and... Chike. And you are emotional right now. Just sleep on it. Tomorrow... Chike. Your mother called your wife barren over dinner. And you are telling me I misunderstood her? The silence this time was different. Heavier. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying my mother is not the type of person who... Esohe hung up. She sat in the dark of the small room, holding her phone in both hands. And the grief of 3 months of trying sat beside the new grief. The grief of a husband who at the exact moment she needed him to choose her, had chosen not to see her. She sat with all of it for a long time. And then something in her shifted. Not broke. Shifted. Like tectonic plates. Slow. Massive. Irreversible. She wiped her face. She set down the phone. She looked at the wall. And she began to think very clearly about tomorrow. She was done being precise. Done being calm. Done being the kind of woman this compound knew how to handle. Tomorrow was Saturday. Mama Eloho's church women were coming. The neighbors, everyone whose opinion the older woman had spent 60 years carefully building. Esohe knew exactly what she was going to do. And she was going to do it in her yellow dress. Esohe had not come to burn the compound down. She came to make sure everyone inside it finally saw what it was. She was up before 6. She showered, oiled her skin, put on the yellow dress, the one she had arrived in, the one that was entirely herself. And she went to the kitchen and cooked. A full spread, eggs, fried plantain, bread, hot tea. More than was needed for 2 people. She set the table beautifully and served Mama Eloho her breakfast with a pleasant smile and a steady hand. Mama Eloho watched her with narrowed eyes. The calm was suspicious. The yellow dress was suspicious. But the food was good and the tea was hot and she could not find the fault she was looking for, so she said nothing and ate. By 9, the church women had arrived. Sister Bridget, 20 years of friendship with Mama Eloho, knew all her stories. Sister Ngosi and Sister Comfort, 2 neighbors who had been Mama Eloho's audience for as long as anyone could remember. The gate man was at his post. His wife sat nearby with her children. The compound filled the way it always did on Saturdays, with the warmth of people who had come to be in Mama Eloho's presence, to drink her tea, to confirm for each other that she was as wonderful as she believed herself to be. Esohe served them, filled their cups, smiled at everything they said. She was the picture of the perfect daughter-in-law, and Mama Eloho bloomed in the warmth of their compliments. Your son's wife is lovely, Mama Eloho, so domestic, so calm.
Mama Eloho agreed. She felt the return of her authority like a garment she was putting back on after a long time off. At 10:15, Isohi set down her tray. She walked to the center of the compound yard. She stood in her yellow dress in the morning light and she turned to face the compound. The church women on their chairs, the neighbors, the gateman, his wife, the children who had gone still without being told to. She did not shout. She did not need to. Her vice principal's voice was a trained instrument and she used it now at exactly the volume required to reach every corner of the yard without sounding like a woman performing a scene. She sounded instead like a woman stating facts.
Mama Eloho. She looked at the older woman directly. I want to say something in front of the people who love you, because you have been saying things to me in corners, and I think it is time for open air. The compound went absolutely still. A child stopped running mid-step. Sister Bridget set her teacup down with a small sound that was the only sound for a full second. Last night at dinner, this woman told me my womb is empty, that something is wrong with me, that my career habits are blocking my blessing. She compared me to her other daughters-in-law as though we are produce being inspected at a market. Mama Eloho was on her feet. Esohe. I am speaking, Mama. Not loud, not rude, absolute. You have been doing this for 30 years. You did it to Priscilla. You did it to Tina. You find the thing, the soft place, and you press until the woman breaks. Then, when she goes home and tells her husband what happens, he says, my mother is the nicest woman on earth. You went there to cause trouble. She let that land. 3 seconds. 4. My own husband said those words to me last night. When I called him crying because his mother called me barren at a dinner table, he told me I must have misunderstood her. Sister Bridget made a sound. Not a word, just a sound. Small, involuntary. I am Esohe Chiki Obi. I am a vice principal. I am 33 years old. I love my husband and I am trying to build a home with him. I have been trying to give him a child and it has not happened yet, and I have been carrying that privately, with dignity, because it is mine to carry. And no woman, she said, her voice dropping half a register, which somehow made it louder, will take my private grief and use it as a public weapon. Not in a corner, not at a dinner table, and not in this yard. She looked around the compound, slowly, deliberately, at every face. The neighbors, the church women, the gateman's wife, the children. I wanted to say that where everyone could hear it, because this compound has kept too many secrets, and secrets are how a system like this survives. She walked back into the house. The compound did not move for a full 10 seconds after she left it. Mama Eloho stood in the center of her yard in front of every woman whose good opinion she had spent 61 years collecting, and felt something she had not felt in decades. Not shame, not yet. Something before shame. Exposure. The raw, airless sensation of being turned inside out in public, of having the inside of the compound suddenly visible to every eye that had only ever seen the outside. Sister Bridget looked at her, not with the comfortable look of 20 years of friendship, with the look of a woman doing arithmetic. Mama Eloho, she said quietly, is what she said true? About Priscilla? About Tina also? The neighbors were watching. Nobody was looking away. Mama Eloho opened her mouth, closed it. For the first time in 30 years, she did not have an answer ready. She had built her entire system on controlling the story, and Esohe had just stood in her yard and told the story first, out loud to everyone. Chiki arrived by 3 o'clock.
He had driven 4 hours without stopping. The news had reached him through Godwin, through Sister Bridget's phone call, through the gateman's WhatsApp message to Godwin's wife. He walked into the compound and found his mother sitting alone in the main room, and he looked at her face and saw something he had never seen there before. She was diminished. Not broken. She was not the kind of woman things broke, but diminished. The way a room looks smaller once you've moved the furniture out. He went straight to Esohi's room. She was sitting on the bed, dress still on, spine still straight. She looked at her husband and waited. He sat down across from her. He put his face in his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were red. "Tell me everything," he said. "From the beginning. All of it." And Esohi, for the first time, for the last time she would ever have to fight
to be believed by this man, told him everything. The 3 months of trying, the doctor's appointment she attended alone, the mop, the shouting, the dinner table, every single word his mother had said about her womb. She laid it all out, piece by piece, in the quiet room, without performance, without decoration, just the truth in the exact shape it was. By the time she finished, Chike's face had the look of a man who had just understood something about himself that he could not unfeel. "I am sorry," he said. It came out wrecked. "Esohi, what I said on the phone, I am sorry. You called me crying and I defended her. I am sorry." She looked at him for a long time. She was deciding not whether to forgive him, that was a longer road, but whether he was actually inside the apology or just frightened of what had happened in the yard. What she saw in his face was real. She could tell the difference. "We are going to talk about this properly," she said. "Not today, when we get home. Because this cannot happen again. Not this, and not you asking me to just manage something that is hurting me." "I know," he said. "Do you?" "Yes." He held her gaze. "I do." Mama Eloho came to Esohi's room the next morning, before the compound was fully awake. She stood in the doorway, and she looked older than she had looked yesterday. Not weaker, older, in the way that only honesty ages you, by removing the things that had been holding the face together. "What I said at dinner," she started. Her jaw worked. "About your womb. About the child." The word arrived slowly, like a thing she had to carry across a long distance. "It was not mine to say. It was not mine to use." Esohi looked at this woman in her doorway. This armored, frightened woman who had spent 30 years controlling everything, because some part of her believed that was the only way to hold a family together. And she felt something that was not warmth yet, but was the thing that comes before warmth. Recognition. The kind that does not excuse, but does not condemn either. Just sees. "I hear you, Mama Eloho," she said. Not "it's fine." Not "I forgive you." Those were not yet honest enough to say. Just "I hear you." Mama Eloho nodded. She turned to go, then stopped, her back still to Esohi. "My own mother-in-law," she said, very quietly. She said the same thing to me in the first year of my marriage, in front of the whole family. A long pause.
I told myself I would never. She did not finish. She walked down the hallway. Esohe sat in the silence that followed and held the full weight of it. The pain, the anger, the complicated, exhausting tenderness. And let all of it move through her without stopping any of it. Because she was not a woman who edited her feelings for other people's comfort. Not anymore. Not ever again. She finished her 30 days. She had decided before she arrived that she would, and she was not the kind of woman who let someone else's cruelty change her plans. On the last morning, she packed her yellow dress. She had worn other things in the compound, but the yellow dress she had saved, folded carefully at the bottom of the bag. The way you save the thing you arrived as. She zipped the suitcase and carried it to the car where Chike was waiting. She walked through the compound gate and paused just once, just briefly, and looked back at the bone-white walls in the early morning light. She had walked in as herself. She was walking out as herself. In the compound's 13-year history, no woman had done that before. She turned around and got in the car. Chike drove, one hand on the wheel, one hand holding hers. They did not speak for a while. The road opened ahead of them. Their life, their marriage, their trying, all of it still unfinished and full of possibility. "Are you okay?" he asked. She thought about it honestly. "I am more okay than I was 30 days ago," she said. Which is strange, given what 30 days ago turned into. He looked at her briefly. "What you did in that yard?" "I know," she said. I know, Chike." He squeezed her hand. She let him. Behind them, in the compound, Sister Bridget was making a phone call to Priscilla's husband, asking in her careful way whether Priscilla had ever mentioned, whether there was perhaps something that had happened during her month in worry, whether anyone had ever actually asked her what those 30 days were like. The compound secrets released into open air were beginning to travel. And Mama Eloho, sitting alone in her main room with her morning tea going cold, was beginning, slowly, painfully, for the first time in 13 years, to reckon with the distance between the woman she believed she was and the woman she had actually been. It was not a comfortable distance, but it was, at last, a true one.